Hey guys, Blonde Astronaut or Toxicaz here, and today we are going to be talking about which Nat 5 to Evo 3 again, and today we are going to be talking about Persephone. Alright, so we're going to go on the same way that I've been doing it all these times. We're going to be talking about pros and cons of each one first, obviously with regards to late game, and then we're going to discuss which one to Evo 3 based on what you want for certain scenarios. First off, we're going to discuss fire. Honestly, sap just falls off late game, and the reason for that is because it's limited. It's in limited content, not really any use for in Titans, no use for it in Dragons, no use for it in PvP. So yeah, it's fire is just it's not a good one. You should not Evo 3 fire. Water, however, it's obviously like one of the best PvP offense and defense monsters, as well as it helps you progress throughout the game in general. But really, if you're getting an Evo 3, you're not really going to need help with progression necessarily. So, although it does help with progression, that's more of a early game thing rather than a late game thing. So I'm not really going to talk about it. Wood serves the same case as fire. It can be useful in Titans, but that's only because of its attack down, which, to be honest, is a good attack down, but not a great one, as some monsters that are Nat 4s, even Nat 3s with Water Gatito, have that kind of skill on their 3-star, which makes it a lot more reliable than having to get the AoE. That being said, I would not Evo 3 this under any circumstances. Next one is Light. Light, not Dark. Light is probably one of the best monsters in the game. It's arguably better than Water for PvP, definitely better for offense, and honestly, it's arguably better on defense based on just like the PvP meta right now. Because there's like a lot of dark attackers, so it does get bursted. It does tend to get bursted down a lot quicker than Water. Although it's not as it doesn't really come with as broad of uses as as Water does. When I say that, I mean the only thing it's really used for in golems and stuff like that is speeding up golems B10 runs, and I guess it can speed up some other golems runs. But in general, Water is mainly what you're gonna use for your golems teams and stuff like that. Although I can see it being used in Dragons as well as Water. For Dark, it's obviously a great attacker. It's one of the best attackers in the game, as you can see here. Pretty fucking good. Excels on PvP offense, and it makes story runs and golem runs a lot faster, just based on the fact that it has such insane not only stats, as you can see here, but also just the skill set with if you have a square on it, it's just ridiculous. Alright, moving on to when I would Evo 3 them all. For story mode, if you want a fast story mode farmer, again, like, yeah, you have everything else that you want. You don't want anything. All you want is a fast story mode farmer. Boom. Dark Nightmare. Easy as pie. 30% SP bonus. Make it super easy. Especially with the AoE that's going to one-shot everything. Just put a Siphon Set on it. Boom. Easy peasy. Light. Okay, sorry, not Light. Next thing you want to do is we're going to see for Golems. For Golems, it's probably between Light and Dark, honestly. The reason you're not really going to go for Water is because Water it doesn't really accomplish as much. It keeps everything alive, but when you have plus 15 gems on all your guys, then you're not really going to need to keep things alive. They're just going to stay alive just based on their gems. So you're really going to want either your actives to get off more to do more damage, or you're going to want that actual damage source, which is going to be through Dark Persephone. So you can choose based on team comp in that sense. I honestly feel like they're about equal, but it really relies on your other resources to choose, rather than like one being just inherently better than the other one. Though it should be said that Light can actually be used in B10 for elemental advantage in a full Light party, whereas Dark in B10 gains no elemental advantage. Next thing is for Dragons. For Dragons, Dragons is a little bit of a tough one, and the reason for that is that honestly, all three have merits. Obviously, all three being besides fire and wood. But to be honest, I'd probably rate the Water Persephone above the Light and the Dark, and the reason for that is because a big problem in Dragons is being able to like just make sure that your team stays alive. And so if you're aiming for dragon progression, there's two things that I would consider. Number one is the typing. B9 is gonna be what's it called? Yeah, B9 is gonna be fire, which is actually one of the hardest ones to farm, whereas B8 is a lot easier, even though it's wood. It's going to be a lot easier due to the amount of fire attackers and healers and stuff like that exist in the game, whereas water is a little bit tougher. Obviously, it is the weakest element, to be honest. So with all these nat 5s, a lot of the water monsters, they're just strong, mainly because there's not anything else in water that can really outclass them, and you really do obviously want some good water monsters. So for dragons, in that sense, it's good, but also in the sense that you don't really need a healer if you have your water Persephone. You can afford to have other debuffers. You can afford to have like a lot of debuffers, such as like, I don't know, what am I going to say, like Water Shelly. You can have Water Shelly, you can have Water Gatito, you can have Water Arthur. You can have a lot of different stuff in there that you really wouldn't be able to have if you had you can have a lot of other stuff in there while you're still doing damage and healing and stuff like that. And you even have that Petrify, which is really nice for dragons since the trash mobs are really strong. Whereas in the other case, you'd have to have like a Water Cura, which number one isn't going to heal as much, number two isn't going to be as consistent, and number three, it isn't going to have that damage source as well. When I say damage source, I mean like a CC source, not a damage source. I apologize. Water Cure will do more damage with the attack up, but it isn't as consistent as a water purse, obviously. However, another choice would probably be light. I probably wouldn't go for dark just because. Oh man, for dark, I would say that dark would just die way too quickly, and it's a lot of RNG based since you're going to be entering a dungeon that's like that's going to be mono element. If you're not really going to bring anything that's weak, obviously you're not going to be like into like B8. You're not going to bring like a water Valkyrie where it's just going to get bursted down or anything. So it's very RNG based on whether it's going to attack the dark person or not, and if the monsters are strong, because obviously they're very strong. They can actually burst the Dark Persephone pretty quickly, which can be very, very, very bad for you. Moving on to light, though, it's kind of the same deal, but you really just have to understand. It's a team comp thing. Whether you feel like you can afford to have a healer, because obviously with Persephone, the healer's kind of consistency problem goes away a lot more due to light Persephone's 3-star skill being like 100% chance to get allies SP. The problem is, though, that means that you're having 2 utility monsters, and you still need some damage monsters, and you need some debuffing monsters as well, which can be really, really bad, just due to the fact that a lot of monsters on their 5 stars, if they're using their 5 stars, they're not really doing as much damage. Whereas honestly, getting your 5 stars isn't really like too important in a way, because you're just going to try to be able to burst the dragon, and a lot of times that doesn't really require monsters 5-star skills. Although it can be pretty good for dragons B10. I would say it's probably better than water purse, mostly because for dragons B10 you're not really trying to use continues, but it's pretty much mandatory to use continues regardless. So just getting your SP and doing as much damage as you can before you have to use those continues is probably the best strategy there. So if your B10 is your aim, probably light Persephone. But if it's if it's anything below B10, then I'd say it's probably gonna go to water purse, to be honest. Just due to the fact that it makes you not have to take a healer. All right, moving on to Titans. Titans, I mean, I don't really know what to. Titans light Persephone is gonna be out just because of you don't really need SP. You get SP every turn. Dark Persephone is an interesting one. Dark Persephone, I feel like it's not as good just because the light and dark Titans hit really, really hard, and it's going to be a neutral attacker on everything else. I think it can be decent, but I don't think it's that good just because, number one, it has the morale boost. Number two, elemental advantage obviously isn't incorporated here. I honestly don't think Water Purse is that special, because if she gets her 5-star, then she doesn't heal even. So she's okay, but not great. I would rate her below Wood Titan. Wood Titan's probably the best. Wood Persephone's probably the best one for Titans. Not by far to Water Persephone. Definitely not a reason to Evo 3 her, in my opinion. But yeah, she's probably the best one for Titans. After that, probably Water Purse, and then Dark Purse, and then Light Purse, and then Fire Purse. In that order. Anyways, moving on to the last part of this, we are going to talk about PvP. PvP is a very interesting one. You either have, basically we're going to talk about offense. We're going to talk offense first, and then we're going to talk about defense. For offense, I'm sorry to say this, but obviously if you have only like, obviously these two are out. Okay, fire and water are still out. For offense, water, I think water is the worst of the light, dark, water trio. I think light is the best and dark is the second best, and hear me out on why. On PvP, obviously, as I said this before in my, I think Valkyrie and my Arthur videos, SP bar being full is probably the best way to snowball your way to a victory. Light Persephone isn't going to be focused down by the enemy units, mainly because obviously the AI doesn't really do like selective targeting as priorities unless it has elemental advantage. So unless you're running into an all dark team, the Light Persephone will live. You'll be able to get your SP bars up way faster than the enemy, and it's just going to be GG from there pretty much, as you're just going to be able to like snowball all the time. You're going to just get SP, 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 and it's just going to snowball out of control, as well as she has a shock. It's 60% for 2 turns, which is ridiculous. You guys know how I feel about 60% for 2 turns. It always happens to me. But yeah, Light Persephone is just going to be the most ridiculous monster on PvP offense, and like, oh my god, this monster is actually insane on PvP offense. Like, it's ridiculous how much SP is actually going to impact it when it's not, like, on defense it's a little bit weaker because you can just target it and kill it, but like on offense it's insanely strong. Moving second is Dark, and that's basically just because of the meta right now, where you can just like have a crit rate leader like a Dark Sea Star and just spam a bunch of Dark monsters against people. Obviously, Dark Persephone is probably like the best option as a Dark attacker, even I would say above Dark Gatito. Maybe on the same level as Dark Gatito, to be honest. But yeah, Dark is going to be second just because of the PvP meta and how people like to attack. It's obviously a very, very strong attacker, but you don't really want to get forced down by people. So if they have an all-light team, it's probably not the greatest idea to bring a Dark Persephone. However, against like other teams, you can just like bring a little bit of bait and then just like dark it up. Water is going to be the third best for PvP offense. Water is going to be great for PvP offense still. Even though it's the worst of the 3, it's still great. And the reason it's great is because it, again, it lets you sustain. It's really good in sustain comp. Same thing with Light Persephone in a way, but Water Persephone amplifies the more sustain concept, whereas Water Persephone amplifies the sustain, while Light Persephone is more used for snowballing. Water Persephone is really, really strong because against these sustain comps, you may be taking damage, but you're like just healing it all up, especially because you're going to mostly have a split tank against a lot of these teams. So these split tanks can actually help an immense amount, because when you're split tanking, the Water Persephone doubles and triples, even quadruples the value that it heals for, based on because it heals everybody. So that's really, really useful for healing up your offense and out sustaining the enemy, which can be a viable strategy on offense that I actually employ a lot. Lastly, we're going to move on to PvP defense. PvP defense is going to be a hassle. I feel like Dark is just really bad on PvP defense. Yeah, it's just going to get bursted down. It's just going to get bursted. Even as hidden monster, it's just going to get bursted down because it needs its 5-star skill to really do things. Like monsters with good 3-star skills, those are good monsters on PvP defense and hiddens, but it has a bad 3-star skill, so it's not going to be very good. Light Persephone, it can be good. However, you're going to be really only if I feel like it only fits on full light teams, because or else you're just going to get bursted by those full dark offenses. So you have to be really, really careful with putting this on your team. Although it obviously is one of the best monsters in the game for PvP. Probably like third best, I'd say, right now. And you guys will see the other 2 later videos. Even though it is like the third best right now, I do think it has inherent weaknesses to Dark, which is one of the main PvP meta offenses right now. So you have to be really, really careful with that. Water, I think, is the best, and the reason I think Water is the best is obviously sustain is the name of the game right now, especially for late game. On top of immense sustain, especially the PvP defense meta right now is Bruisers, and Bruisers have a lot of defense in them, and the defense is just complemented by the Water Persephone's percent HP healing, which is going to heal them for a flat amount, which means those heals are amplified because she's healing defenders. Now that's really, really strong by itself, but also it has nice CC ability of Petrify. I mean, Petrify is not usually good, but the fact that it takes so long to go off means that it's fine. It's not really going to waste anything when you Petrify and stuff like that. So it's overall just like a really, really solid monster for PvP defense staple, especially since there's not too incredibly many wood attackers to really contest it. Anyways, overall, I'd say that if you're aiming for a story mode monster, go for Dark. Remember, that's really not a reason to Evo 3 anything unless you really have nothing else to do. But in this case, Dark is also really useful. I would Evo 3 Dark only if, number one, you're trying that. Number two, if you're really struggling with with Dragons B10, sorry. Because Dragons B10, Dark is probably the best thing for Dragons B10. Light is also very good for that, but we're focusing on when you Evo 3 Dark. If Dragons B10 or Story Mode Clear are your goals, I'd go for that. As well as if you're trying to go for a full mono Dark offense. Full mono Dark offense is in meta right now. You can definitely use it against a lot of these teams. So if in those three cases, if you have, I would say don't even bother going for a full mono Dark offense unless you have a Dark Gatito though. If you don't have a Dark Gatito, just say screw it, okay? It's just not going to be worth it in that case. You're better off going with another Persephone. Secondly, I'd say that, so yeah, okay, for Dark, Story Mode, and full mono Dark if you have a Dark Gatito. Those are the only times I would Evo 3. And that's only if you don't care about PvP defense, which I know a lot of people care more about PvP defense than PvP offense. Which is, in my opinion, it's like kind of like a mistake, but it's okay, it's whatever. Moving on to PvP, to when you want to Evo 3 Light. You want to Evo 3 Light if you have a full mono light defense, if you want to clear B10's golems, or if you need a powerful monster for your PvP offense as well. Now this is everything else except for mono Dark offense, obviously. So if you're caring about your PvP offense a lot, I would go for what's it called? If you're going for more of a snowbally offense, I'd go for the light Persephone. This is snowbally because it'll make runs a lot quicker, but on offense, and it's definitely the best, no, second best. You guys will see what's the best, and if you don't know what's best, I'm sorry, but it's pretty obvious in my opinion. Probably one of the best offensive units in the game because of just its 20% SP is pretty ridiculous for snowballing things because SP is so important. But yeah, light, if you're trying to like do really like faster runs and stuff like that, I would probably go for light, honestly. Light is mainly just for speed because obviously SP equals pretty much, SP stands for speed, let's put it that way. If you want to do things faster, definitely go for light. Light Persephone is pretty damn insane. However, if you would rather go for safety, and when I say safety, I mean like sustain in PvP offense, safety is in PvP defense, and safety in runs as in like you're gonna have like go from that like 95% clear to that 100% clear, then go for Water Persephone. Water Persephone, especially in the PvP defense meta, excels, and she's gonna be able to she's really gonna be able to like make your runs a lot safer just based on the fact that she has that awesome max HP and her awesome 3-star skill. So to sum everything up in even less words than that, a TLDR of the TLDR, Water for safety, Light for snowballing, and Dark as a niche attacker. And yeah. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Tried to make it a little bit more concise this time, as I know that's kind of like a thing that I might have a little bit of a problem with. Okay, a lot of a problem with. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.